Before we get started in this video, I do want to take a moment and say this Sunday, June 30th at 10 a.m. on our channel under the community, we are going to open up a discussion about why don't you go to church? What is it about church that is holding you away? Because I have my struggles as well, and I'm going to share those with you this Sunday. But join us. That's going to be under the community tab at the God, Family, and Guns YouTube page. Well, hey, we're out doing a little squirrel hunting here. I was actually making a full-length video on this hunt, and I stopped here because it looks like if I was a squirrel, I'd like to live here. A lot of the big giant nut trees, good canopy. Summertime squirrel hunting's hard. But as I was sitting here, I was praying, and God said, go ahead and something's up there. Man, I hope I get a squirrel. Anyhow, we're going through the book of Matthew, verse by verse, and God has instructed me to hunt and fish while I'm doing it, and I was just hunting, and I had a backpack with my Bible in it, and God just brought it to my heart and mind, and if I get anything, I'll kind of reel it in here, put a little footage on how I even got down to this place. But it's incredibly important to go through the book of Matthew because the book of Matthew is, well, the church is ignorant to many of the teachings of Jesus Christ, and it's important that we go through the book of Matthew, verse by verse, and to understand it in great detail, and then we make those decisions for ourselves. But where we are in this book is we've been going through the genealogy, and the genealogy is so incredible. It's actually been blowing my mind. Every step of the way, from Abraham all the way to Jesus, is just really each step. I found myself at night telling my wife, "Oh, you wouldn't believe this," or "Did you know this?" Or it's just so fascinating. That's when you know it's incredibly interesting, is when you can't wait to share it with somebody. But we've hit this place where Rahab, the harlot who betrayed her nation, really connects with Salmon, and Salmon was the son of Nahshon, and Nahshon was one of the greatest military leaders Judah had ever known. He led a 78,000 strong army while they wandered around the wilderness, and then his son Salmon, who was born in the wilderness, was allowed to go into the promised lands, and somehow fell in love with Rahab. It's pretty beautiful. And then they give birth to Boaz, and of course Boaz is going to be a wealthy fella because now they've distributed land to people. And when your grandfather was a military leader and your father was most likely a military leader, you're doing pretty good in the time of peace. And he falls in love with Ruth, who, is just such a beautiful story. And then they give birth. Well, let's just pick it up there. Matthew 1, verse 4. Ram begot Amminadab, Amminadab begot Nahshon, and that all took place in captivity. Nahshon begot Salmon, and that was in the wilderness. Sam begot Boaz by Rahab. Boaz begot Obed by Ruth. Obed begot Jesse. Now, Jesse is going to be the dad of David, so we're getting really close to David here. But here what you have is you have Ruth, who is not from Israel. And she is a widow from Moab, and she stays with her mother-in-law, who goes back to Israel and is gleaning in the field and falls in love with Boaz, and Boaz falls in love with her, and they give birth to Obed, and it's really kind of an interesting story, this piece with Obed. So we're going to go to the end of Ruth. Ruth 4, verse 13. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And when he went into her, the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son. Then the women said to Naomi, which is her mother-in-law, "Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without a near kinsman. And may this name be famous in Israel. And may he be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you, who is better to you than 7 sons, has borne him." Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her bosom and became a nurse to him. Also the neighbor women gave him a name, saying, "There is a son born to Naomi." And they called his name Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David. And then they get into the genealogy from Perez to David, and we've gone through that part already. So let's take a look at who Obed is, because Obed's going to give birth to Jesse, or not, but he's going to be the father of Jesse. And Jesse, of course, is going to raise a son who has the heart of God. So Obed is first and foremost, and the thing about names is oftentimes, there's no real stories about Obed in the Bible, at least that I couldn't find, other than just he's the father of Jesse, who is the father of David. And that's about all we know, except for what we know here in Ruth. But what we do know is that what's declared over him is that his name be famous in Israel. And may he be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher. Now, keep in mind, we're going through the genealogy of Jesus Christ. And along the way, there's been some good, bad, and ugly along this genealogy. And this is really, for the first time in a while, a time of peace, or at least a time of settling. I feel like I hear somebody talking other than me. Now there's a river way down there, and it carries sound. I'm hoping maybe somebody's canoeing down it. I can't see. I'm way on top of the mountain, but I can hear people talking down there. It's all me from my land from here to the bottom, so there should not be anybody down there. Unless they're canoeing, of course, that's public land. All right, anyhow. So he's a nourisher. He's a restorer of life. Because Naomi, she lost everything. Being a widow would have been horrible back then. And then to not have your sons either, and just be lugging around another widow as your daughter-in-law. It just all sounds terrible. So he has restored her life. And he is a nourisher. And ultimately, Obed is then going to give birth to Jesse and raise a man who will raise several boys who are all very dedicated to him and Israel in general, but one man. He's going to raise one man who has the heart of God. And you're not just the grandfather of King David and it happened by accident. And you're not just the grandfather of King David and it happened strictly through you doing whatever you want. Like, he had to be a man of God. And he was the man. He would have been raised by Boaz, so I'm sure he would have had some military service, and you don't ever want to discredit that, because you get to David, and his brothers are soldiers, and he ultimately fights as a soldier his entire life. But do keep in mind that Nahshon begot Salmon begot Boaz, Boaz begot Jesse. So you got Nishon, greatest military leader Judah had ever seen. You got Salmon, who then led that same military into Jericho, conquering it. Then you have Boaz, his son, and now you have Obed. So what you have is you still have people, sure, David was a shepherd, but most people were shepherds, whether you were a soldier or not. You still shepherd animals. So, especially if you're settling. So there you go. A nourisher and a restorer of life, Obed. We'll get into Jesse next time. Jesse's really fascinating because a lot more is written about Jesse, of course. But even he was fooled. His eyes deceived him. It's fascinating. So I'm going to keep going. I'm probably going to stay here for a bit longer and maybe just be quiet. I'm sure me talking is not helping at all. But I still got a good feeling about this spot. If I get anything, I'll definitely put it in the end. There you go. So stay with us, man. Keep digging through Matthew. The genealogy is incredibly important. It's the path to Jesus Christ, the real path to the restorer of life, the real path to the nourisher. That's what this is. So there you go. Any thoughts or insight, definitely put it below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. This is, of course, this Matthew series on a playlist titled The Church is Ignorant to the Teachings of Jesus. I think this is number 11, maybe.